All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover here today. We're starting with a really interesting interaction that occurred on Twitter with a former Xbox executive where he chimes in and gives his opinion on whether or not he thinks the console market is dying. I'm referring to Mike Ybarra. That name might be familiar to some of you. He was over at Microsoft for, I think, more than 20 years. He was the vice president of gaming and a longtime Xbox executive. It started with Tim Dog saying, "It is what it is. Sony believes in exclusivity, and it's because it works. It doesn't for Xbox now, so they go full slate. I can't blame Sony either because they at least believe in making its console a place where it gets exclusive stuff, games, third-party, etc." Mike Ybarra actually replied by saying, "If your strategy is to win the living room, you need exclusive hits because winning is both a platform and games perspective. Sony knows how to make hits and how to pick the hits from others to be exclusive. If I was them, I would double down right now because the blood in the water is all over the place." And then the individual Brap says, "Mike, the narrative is that the living room is not the future or that consoles are dying. Thoughts on this?" And Mike Ybarra replies by saying, "I think those losing push the narrative that fits for them. Consoles will never die, in my opinion." Now, I wanted to cover this because I thought this was actually very interesting that Mike Ybarra chimed in. I mean, this is an individual who knows what he's talking about. Again, he was over there at Microsoft for many, many years, doing many things with Xbox. He knows what it takes to make the console a success, and he's been part of that during his time at Xbox. And so I thought it was very interesting to kind of get his opinion on this, where he believes that Sony should actually double down right now on exclusivity in some way, shape, or form. And he does believe that the console is still relevant and that it's never going to die. And most interestingly, he basically throws some shade here at Microsoft, saying that I think those that are losing push the narrative that fits for them, which isn't necessarily surprising. But this is something we've been covering for a little while now, right? Whereas we see Microsoft clearly starting to get much more comfortable going multi-platform, and it's just accelerating as time goes on. Their console sales are reaching new low points. The PS5 is doing pretty well still, I'd say, and the Switch, well, the Switch 2 is coming, and I think it's safe to say that's going to do well too. But there is this kind of narrative that we see that, no, it doesn't matter because consoles are on their way out. And, what we're seeing with Microsoft is just the beginning. So that's why I thought it was interesting to get the opinion of not just some random person here, but somebody who's been involved on a business level for many, many years, somebody who knows what they're talking about. Even he's coming out here saying, like, no, Microsoft is basically just kind of trying to push this narrative because right now it fits for them. And you can't really blame Microsoft for doing that. I mean, if you're in the losing position, that's what you're going to do. But yeah, I think it provides a little bit of clarity. But I want to know what you guys think of what Mike Ybarra had to say. We're moving on to the next topic, though, which actually talks about an upcoming PlayStation 5 exclusive, that being Astro. We're starting here with Team Asobi actually already hinting at a sequel to Astro. This is being reported by Push Square. Ahead of its PS5 release next week, the trophy list for Astro has been posted to Exophase, and what is noteworthy is the Platinum Trophy description. Earned all trophies, well done, and see you in Astro's next adventure. So, will Astro 2 be out before the end of the PS5 generation? That's the question to ponder now. Of course, this is a more friendly thank you from Team Asobi than anything else, but the Japanese developer has set a precedence for teasing future Astro entries in its Platinum Trophy descriptions. For example, the Platinum Trophy tied to PS5 pack-in Astro's Playroom said, "Found all trophies in Astro's Playroom. See you in our next adventure." Now, 4 years later, Astro is right around the corner. So I'm not going to go over any of the other trophies here. I don't want to get into any spoilers, but I thought that this was pretty interesting and something worth covering. I think it's safe to say we're going to absolutely see more Astro in the future, so maybe that's not the most surprising thing, but it is worth wondering if we are going to see more Astro before the end of the PS5 generation, or if maybe the sequel to this could, I don't know, as crazy as it sounds because it's quite a ways away, maybe even be a launch PlayStation 6 game. Either way, I hope we get more Astro, and it's good to see that we're likely going to. But continuing to talk about Astro, We are hearing about some post-launch DLC being reported by PlayStation Lifestyle. Astrobot will be getting free post-launch DLC, and some of that will be speedrun stages that are familiar to players with Astrobot Rescue Mission. The levels would have been included in the main game had they been completed by the launch deadline, so Team Asobi decided it was going to release them for free at a later date. Team Asobi studio head Nicolas Doucet told Famitsu that we plan to release DLC that includes playful stages and exciting speedrun stages like in the previous game. Speedrun stages were known as time trial levels in Rescue Mission and tasked players with completing short levels in less than 60 seconds. So, yeah, I just wanted to throw this out there for anybody wondering if there's going to be any post-launch support for Astrobot. We are getting confirmation that we are going to get some free DLC in the form of speedrun stages. And I do wonder if we're going to get anything beyond that. Maybe if the game sells very well, we could maybe expect some more. But continuing to talk about Astrobot, apparently during an interview, the director of Astrobot was asked whether or not Mark Cerny actually played the game. And he said he played it recently and he put the controller down and he said, "Now this is a game." Cerny did provide other advice concerning very deep technology stuff and optimization, but it seems that he has no notes for the game itself. You can't ask for much better than that. I thought that this was just something that was worth pointing out because Mark Cerny is considered an absolute legend in the gaming industry, and it must be, quite the compliment, right, to have somebody like Mark Cerny sit down and play your game and just simply say, "Now that's a game." No feedback, just I liked it. I wouldn't be surprised if this is Mark Cerny's next platinum that he ends up going after. But the final thing regarding Astrobot here is the review embargo. We're learning from Tom Henderson that Astrobot codes are out now, and the review embargo will lift on September 5th. So just one day before the game launches. It'll be very interesting to see how this game reviews. I think a lot of people are thinking it's going to review pretty positively. There seems to be just generally a lot of excitement for what Team Asobi is cooked up here. And so unless there's some kind of glaring flaw that we're missing or hasn't been, shown off or something, it seems likely to me that it's going to review relatively well. But we're going to move on to the next topic, which is something pretty interesting that just kind of popped up overnight. I have an article here from Push Square. Dramatic conflicts as Sony accused of signing secret PS5 exclusivity with Black Myth Wukong. So there's multiple updates here. We're going to start with the original story. The original story says rumors started by Forbes contributor Paul Tassi have today claimed that Sony signed a console exclusivity arrangement with Chinese action game Black Myth Wukong. The game was previously announced for multiple systems, including the Xbox Series X and S, but during Summer Game Fest, developer Game Science announced it was having issues with Microsoft's machine and would only release a PS5 and PC version initially. The title has since gone on to sell 10 million copies. At the time, the studio issued a FAQ explaining its decision to skip Xbox. We are currently optimizing the Xbox Series X and S version to meet our quality standards, so it won't release simultaneously with other platforms. We apologize for the delay and aim to minimize the wait for Xbox users. We will announce the release date as soon as it meets our quality standards. A subsequent statement shared by Microsoft fueled the fire about a supposed secret Sony exclusivity deal. We can't comment on the deals made by our partners with other platform holders, but we remain focused on making Xbox the best platform for gamers, and great games are at the center of that. This is what a spokesperson told Windows Central, prompting speculation that PlayStation had actually signed a deal for the game. This, as we pointed out at the time, didn't make sense. PlayStation has been extremely open about the nature of its timed exclusives, with Final Fantasy XVI, 7 Rebirth being prime recent examples. Both titles included small print disclosing the duration of their availability and were openly announced as timed exclusives. Silent Hill 2, as we can also see, has a similar declaration. Paul Tassi, however, claims that Sony has signed a timed exclusivity deal, and Game Science is lying about the technical issues its title is experiencing on Xbox consoles. He says on Twitter, a source with knowledge of the situation has told me that Black Myth Wukong is not currently on Xbox because of an exclusivity deal and is not delayed because of any sort of technical issues. Now, there are two updates to the story. Update number 1. At this point, someone is going to have to say something. A separate IGN report corroborating comments made by Forbes' Paul Tassi claims Sony did indeed sign a secret exclusivity arrangement with Black Myth Wukong developer Game Science. The unnamed source claims the developer's comments about technical issues with the Xbox Series versions of the game are, quote, inaccurate. Now we have the second and final update as of the time of this recording. An interesting night of conflicting reports has brought no resolution to the idea Sony secretly paid for Black Myth Wukong exclusivity. Neither the platform holder nor developer Game Science has commented on the speculation, but Giant Bomb's Jeff Grubb has gone against the recent round of reports. Grubb said on a podcast that he'd spoken to someone who would know and that Sony has, quote, no money marketing deal to keep Black Myth Wukong off Xbox, end quote. He speculates it's possible that the PlayStation maker may have helped on the development side and also points out that Game Science potentially may have prioritized the PS5 due to its larger Asian audience. And I believe since the time of this writing of this article, even with this recent update, even more insiders have chimed in. I think somebody who goes by Ecstasis on Twitter also said that there is no exclusivity deal. And I think people are being a little bit strange with this one here, where it should be fairly obvious to everybody that Sony did not sign a exclusivity deal. If they did, they would have to disclose that. But on top of it, and this is just the most obvious thing that seems to be going over many people's heads, why would Sony pay an exorbitant amount of money to lock down exclusivity for a game like Black Myth Wukong to then not promote it, to then not show it in any of their marketing material or any of their stated plays that they do? It makes literally zero sense, especially when you consider that Sony has never once hidden any exclusivity deals they made. They've never even tried to be subtle about it. They put it right in your face. They want people to know if a game is exclusive to their console, because if they don't know, it's not going to sell consoles. The point of exclusivity deals is to sell hardware. So again, it makes zero sense for this to be some kind of secret. And it seems pretty obvious to me that there are just certain people out there who, you know, they're trying to skew the narrative. The reality is it's an Unreal Engine 5 game and it's already struggling to a small degree on the PS5. If that's the case, I think it's safe to say this game is probably also having issues, probably 10 times worse on the Series S. So, you know, this is just a bad look overall, I think, for Xbox and for anybody who is promoting this and trying to make it seem like there's some kind of secret exclusivity deal. It maybe does sound like Sony could have chimed in and helped out a little bit, where it's like, if you guys are having any issues, we'll try to help you out here, because that's in Sony's best interest, right? Sony wants this game on their console, of course, but that's completely separate and different from the idea that Sony is paying to keep this game off of the Xbox side of things. So yeah, this was just something I felt like I had to cover because it was kind of blowing up and becoming a big deal. But yeah, I'm sure at some point, and who knows, maybe by the time this video goes out, Sony or Game Science will chime in. But yeah, just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of this. Let me know your thoughts on it. We're going to move on to the next topic. This one's going to be pretty brief, but I want to let everybody know because this is a game that I know a lot of people are looking forward to on PS5. Warhammer Space Marine 2, according to PlayStation Game Size, will have a quality mode, so it'll run at 4K resolution at 30 frames per second. But there will also be a performance mode, and it's going to be 60 FPS at 1080p. So a little bit disappointing that it's only going to be at 1080p, but still good to know that there will be that 60 FPS performance mode. Again, seeing a game come out at 1080p 60 FPS on the PS5, you do have to wonder if this is one of those titles that could get a PS5 Pro patch and maybe get bumped up to 1440p, closer to 4K potentially. He also says here support for force triggers on the DualSense controller, but no haptic feedback at launch. So for those who were looking forward to Warhammer Space Marine 2 on PS5, this is what you can look forward to in terms of performance and features. And the very last topic here that I definitely had to include talks about Konami essentially confirming MGS4 will be coming to current-gen consoles. So there was a recent interview done with a Konami producer, Noriaki Akamura, and he was kind of asked about this directly, like, you know, what's going on with Metal Gear Solid 4, a PS5 port, and, you know, maybe a Volume 2 for the Metal Gear Solid collection. And he says, quote, "We definitely are aware of the situation with MGS4. Unfortunately, we can't really say too much at the moment with Volume 1 containing MGS1 through 3, ... You can probably connect the dots." So he specifically said ... and then said you can connect them, right? So it's obvious that MGS4 is coming. He also suggests fans, quote, "stay tuned," despite not having revealed anything in this exact moment. But yeah, it should be obvious by this point if it wasn't already. I mean, this is basically confirmation from Konami themselves that, yeah, we're going to be bringing MGS4 over to modern consoles. It's kind of a big deal because it's been locked on PS3 this whole time. Will it be exclusive to PlayStation? Unlikely. It seems Konami is going multi-plat with these collections, which I think is a smart thing. You know, they're older games. Let as many people have access to them as possible. MGS4 was exclusive long enough. You know, it's one of my favorite games ever. So I think it's just cool that more people will be able to play it finally. And that's absolutely something that I will be buying day one. So there you go, guys. That's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, leave it a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.